When I was 10 years old, I was sitting with my family. My father was sitting across from me, and my mother and sister were sitting next to me, and I had my arms laying flat on the table. My dad pointed out, you've got a bone sticking out. And I thought, okay, Dad, whatever, like we'll set up the appointment with the doctor just to make sure everything's okay. And my mom and I were shocked when the doctor said, let's refer you to an orthopedic surgeon just to check this out a little bit more. After a few days and weeks and research, the orthopedic surgeon came back to us and said, I think we've nailed down what the issue here is. And he discovered that I had something called Madalung's deformity, which only 1 in 2 million women have ever been diagnosed with since the discovery of this deformity. And so if I were not to have surgery, I would go through my life with pain and my arms would continue to bow to the point where it would be very difficult for me to use them. And so we lived in Los Angeles with excellent hospitals around, and we went and we got surgery, and I had so much anxiety and fear about this surgery because I was the kid when I sat on the couch and an ad came on about medical shows, I would close my eyes. My mom would have to beg me to go to the doctor to get a shot. I was terrified of having this surgery, and that was one of the first times in my life that I really had to make the God of my parents and of the Bible and the God I was singing songs about in church real for me, because I needed something bigger to help me overcome this fear. And so I had this surgery. It was very successful. My family was so supportive. But because of that surgery, I was no longer going to be dealing with physical pain, but the length of my arms was shorter because they had to go in and change some things and move some discs and bones and medical terms. And I came out with these different looking arms. And something that I realized was that pain of the surgery was only the first time that this was going to really hurt me deeply. Later on in my teenage years, starting at about 12 and 13, things began to change and girls started noticing different things about their bodies and insecurities and trying to impress boys, and that was the age where people were really sizing each other up. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was the most pain I was ever going to feel in my life about this deformity, this Madalung's, this thing that made me so different from my peers. I would get questions from people in my class saying, so what exactly happened to you? Why do your arms look like that? Or do you have this thing? Do you have that thing? People sizing me out and picking me out. And I remember being jealous of other girls who their only problem was acne or that their hair was too thin. And I thought, man, if you only knew how it felt to be me and have this thing, you are so lucky. So that persisted on for many years. I remember when I was about 16, I went to get ice cream with 2 of my friends. And of course, it was the summertime, and so it was very hot. And I thought, okay, well, I can't really get away with wearing long sleeves like I normally do. So I just had to wear short sleeves and tank tops and let people see this vulnerable side of me that I so badly wanted to hide. So we were standing in line, and I could hear some other teenagers behind us whispering, and I got this sick feeling in my stomach. Oh, they're talking about me, whispering, what's going on with her arms? Did you see her when she walked in? Well, they're so small, but the rest of her body isn't that small, and what's going on? I've never seen that before. And I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted so badly just to hide and go home and I wasn't sure if my friends had heard it because they had asked me questions in the past trying to get to know me, and I didn't want to talk to them about it. I was ashamed. I just wanted to be normal. Whatever that meant, I wanted to be like them. And so I asked them if I could sit in the back seat, just trying to keep a smile on my face and not let the burning hot tears that truly wanted to come out flow. I got home and I went immediately to my room and I started crying and weeping. I mourned that I was never going to look exactly like my friends, and I was never going to be able to get rid of this thing. And that's when things started to change. I was crying and pleading with God. I had a relationship with him, but I was also angry at him for letting me experience this thing that made me feel different. And so finally, after I allowed myself to calm down a bit and just open my Bible, I came across Psalms 139, verse 14 in my Bible, and it said, "You are fearfully and wonderfully made." I'd read it before, but this time it was different. I realized I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, not without the exception of this thing that I had, but also with it. And not without the exception of other conditions and other people. And I realized I'm not the only person struggling. My thing might be on my body physically, but there are people who struggle with anxiety, mental health, suicidal thoughts, abusive families and partners, and things that just feel insurmountable. But the Bible says you are fearfully and wonderfully made, period. And so I began to realize that if I was ever going to be happy, I needed to replace the thoughts that I felt about myself and I thought toward myself with the words in the Bible from the Almighty Creator. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And I began to have hope. Things began to change. I no longer wanted to hide how I looked in wearing baggy clothes or long sleeves. I began to really enjoy fashion and pretty things, and I began to feel happier, and I began to feel more confident. And when my friends would ask me questions, I realized it was just because they wanted to get to know me and understand my story. And they were actually proud of the strength and resiliency that I showed to be able to go through some of those things. And it made me more empathetic to other people's struggles. And I don't believe that God gave this to me, but I do believe that the words that I read in His Bible help me overcome the thing that I am struggling with that I cannot change. And I've realized that that is so true for so many other people. Maybe it's your spouse is walking out on you and you can't stop them. Nothing you can say can fix your marriage. Or maybe your kids are angry and won't speak to you. Or maybe you have this addiction that you can't seem to get over. But the good news is that we don't have to be locked in by these things that make us feel unworthy. I realize that I am worthy and I'm fearfully, wonderfully made, period. And so are you.